Hello, and welcome to Morph Minutes, presented by Studio M Financial. Studio M Financial exists to help you change the sound of your money through financial education and coaching. My name is Katrina Pitts, host for you today, financial instructor and coach here at Studio M. And today is our session 2 in our 4-part series on decision making. Last week we started with major purchases. Today we're going to talk about amount and form of payment. And I need to make one correction from a stat that I gave you all last week. I think I said that 67% was the number that was presented by the Fed. It's actually 37%. So 37% of adults were not able to cover a $400 expense, completely cover it by cash or cash equivalent. And 13 could not cover it by any means. So I want to make sure that clarification is clear. I don't want to misquote or give an incorrect statistic. The number is 37% of adults could not cover a $400 expense completely by cash or cash equivalent. And then it was smaller, 13% could not cover it by any means. So apologies for the incorrect speak, but hopefully I've clarified that today in this episode. So today, like I said, major purchase last week. This week is amount and form of payment. So it kind of goes along with that quote that statistic that I gave you. So the amount that we are using for this discussion, for this series, is $200. Is our expense greater or less than $200? If it's less than, less of a pain point. If it's greater than, by how much? We need to figure that out. The math is pretty simple. Bring out your calculator and you can make the determination. The second part of this is, will this expense be made using cash or credit? Do we have the available funds already set aside for that in a separate account or debit card or investment, whatever? Or are we using credit for this? So credit card they already have in our wallet. Are we having to find external credit sources, whether it's a personal loan, revolving loan, line of credit, whatever the resource is? And if it's cash, what account are we using? Is it coming out of operating? Is it coming out of a savings account that we have set aside specific for this goal? It's part of our travel, and so it's coming out of our travel fund, or it's an emergency, so it's coming out of our emergency fund. What account is it coming out of? And then if it's credit, what credit card are we using? And how are we going to work to pay off this new debt that we have incurred? So do we have a plan for repayment for this? Do we have a plan to amount of money that we are going to put on this credit card for the next several months to be able to pay this off? What's our plan? Which is part of the second, or I guess question number 3. But let me finish question number 2 first. Will this balance carry forward? Meaning, if we put this on our credit card, $1,500, $1,800, $400, whatever the amount is, are we going to pay this off in full when our credit card bill comes due? Or are we have to carry this forward, which means we are now incurring interest? And so our amount is growing to the extent that we have not paid it off completely and fully in that amount of time. So things to think about, again, factoring into our decision making. So then the third part of this is, do we have a plan to replenish it? So if it's coming out of savings, do we have a plan for the next 3 months? If for example, if the amount is $500, do we have a plan to pay $125 for the next 4 months to replenish that $500 that we took out of that savings account? If yes, great. If no, we're going to have to figure out a way to replenish that amount. Otherwise, we're just going to drain it until it's down to zero. But the purpose of savings accounts is to use and then replenish. To use and then replenish. Use it, replenish it. Use it, replenish it. Otherwise, if you're just using it, like I said, you're just draining it down to zero, and then you have no more available resources. So if yes, what amount from your budget will you allocate to repay or pay off the credit card to minimize fees or interest applied? If you don't plan to replenish, or you don't plan to pay off the debit or credit card, do you need to calculate the necessary amount of time required to repay that? You should probably think about that and factor that into your decision making. If you don't already have a plan for that, think through that a little bit. We're using the money, how are we going to pay it back? We're using the money, how are we going to pay it off? The fourth question is, does this service or product provide multiple or single use? And this question is actually interesting to me because you're essentially determining the cost per use for it. And this can come in a lot of ways. Sometimes when we buy, if you're a shoe collector, if you are a jewelry art collector, there's not a lot of usage for art specifically. Kind of hangs on the wall. They're not really using it, but you're looking at it regularly. If you're a shoe collector, you're collecting shoes, which means the more you have, the fewer time that you are going to wear them. Or if you just enjoy shopping, you enjoy clothing, you enjoy all these different things, the higher the price tag on that, and it's relative, the higher the price tag on that, the amount of usage really becomes important. So for instance, if you're paying, I don't know, $75 for a shirt and you wear that shirt 2 times, so you do the math, $75 was at $32.50. So that each use costs you $32.50 to get to that $75. Or you buy a $75 shirt and you wear it 10 times. So each of those uses is $7.50. So there's a variety of ways to kind of slice that pie of the amount that you're spending. What's the actual usage that you're going to get out of this? And does that value and that amount, do those equal? So if that $75 shirt is for a very specific event, it is a nice dinner, or it is a nice party, a theme party, whatever. So that value can be pretty high because it's a nice shirt. It's for a particular value, for a particular reason. And so for you, yes, the expense and the value match. If it's a basic shirt that is a staple in the closet that you need, I would argue that the value and the cost actually also match. You're getting good usage, getting good wear out of it because it is a staple that won't wear out, won't wear out quickly, and you have use of it for a long period of time. So that cost per use part really is actually kind of important if we're thinking about things like electronics, or thinking about things of even, I will throw this out, gym memberships. And I am not for them, I'm not against them. I am gym membership neutral. But really thinking about how many times am I actually two things. How many times are available for me to go to the gym? Presumably every day. Presumably it's open every single day. What are the actual hours that I can actually set aside for that? And what are the actual amount of the amount of time that I'm actually going to go to the gym? And as that number gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller because of schedules, because of kids, because of family, because of all these different obligations, you're looking at your calendar going, I really can only get there maybe 2 times a week. So you're looking at 8 times of usage, and the amount is $250, $300 a month. Is that cost for every time that you go, are you getting the value out of it? And if the answer is yes, great. If the answer is I don't know, then perhaps that's something that to think about. Is this amount of money that you were spending really getting you the desired result that you want from that? So something to think about. And just to consider, again, whatever the decision is the decision, and it makes sense for you, and you're the only person that can set that value, perfectly fine. So if it's multiple uses, what's the cost per use of this product or service? If it's single use, does the cost of this service or product provide equal or greater value? Meaning you are purchasing this and it has a very qualifiable, it's not really quantifiable, but qualifiable value to it, meaning you are signing and say, yes, this is worth the purchase to me. And frankly, it's subjective and it is personal. It is you that is determining how much value actually is a part of this purchase. It's not me determining it. It's not your neighbor determining it. It's not your boss. It's not your best friend. It's not any of those people. And with the caveat of, if you're in a committed relationship, that person also weighs in on this as well. Discussion and communication is definitely a part of it, because there is a unity that is in this, and there is a partnership that is a part of money management, especially if you're in a committed relationship. So even if that purchase is for you, there should be a shared awareness and a shared agreement as to the actual purchase itself. So single costs, multiple costs, what is that? What is the answer to that? And are we assigning the appropriate value to it? So amount and form of payment. This week's was pretty straightforward. So last week we had major purchases. I encourage you to go back and re-listen to that one, or listen to it for the first time if you missed it last week. This week was amount and form of payment. So is this amount greater or less than that kind of threshold starting for major expenses for this class, or not this class, but for this series? Our number is $200. Will this expense be paid using cash or credit? So do we have this in savings, or are we utilizing a credit card that we have? If it's in a main operating account or it's a credit card, do we have a plan to replenish the savings account? Do we have a plan to pay off the credit card? And then finally, does this product or service provide multiple uses or a single use? So we're calculating the cost per use, or approximate cost per use. If I purchase X amount, how many times and how many uses am I going to get out of this? And does that number match the value that I've assigned to it? That it makes sense to me, that I feel like I'm getting my money's worth in this. If it's single use, different. If it's multiple use, different. And you get to set that value for it because of the meaningfulness it has to you. So this is part 2, like I said, amount and form of payment. So thank you for taking your time with us today. I appreciate it, and Studio M appreciates it as a whole. I encourage you to subscribe to our Studio M YouTube channel and connect with us on social media. We're on Twitter or X. We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram as well. So you can find us and sign up for our current money education class, our Your Money Sound. We have them starting in January. We offer them the first and the third Tuesday of every single month. And it's introduction to money management and the recovery and communication and needs and wants and budgeting and spending plans, and kind of the preliminary checklist of what we should be thinking about when it comes to our financial situation. So I encourage you all to look that up. You can find us on www.studioinfinancial.net. You can drop us an email at letstalk@studioinfinancial.net, or like I said, any of our social media platforms you can find us. Also encourage you, if you want to talk more about it and take advantage of our free coaching consultation, feel free to schedule one of those through our website as well. And so for that, I will close this out and say, until we meet, keep working on the change.